Hi, welcome to Eternal Beta. I'm Scott Rowe.
And I'm Nathan Anderson.
Thanks for joining us again this week. Great topics this week. I think a lot of really good discussion points here. A lot of times we talk a lot about statistics and things like that, but just a couple of interesting articles that have come out in the past week that really, I don't know, gave us a lot of stuff that we were talking about together, so we think we might enjoy discussing it with you. But to start off...
First things first, YouTube turned 7 years old today. And with that, we got sevens. Users are now uploading 72 hours of video a minute. So that means that literally if you watch this whole video, which I'm sure you will, there will be 30 hours of video that will have gone up to YouTube while that's happening. It's basically like if you wanted to say, I'm going to take my life off to watch YouTube, you can't now. Like, there's too much. And with that 72 hours of video, there's 3 billion hours of it being total viewed a month. So that's about 30 minutes per human being on the planet currently.
I mean, think about those statistics. It's almost just staggering.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you think back to when YouTube started and the big publishers and their content, and now, I mean, the average consumer, you know, producing this vast amount of content. Now, obviously, it's not all consumers. Obviously, we're a company.
Yeah.
We're a business, and we're producing content for YouTube. But it is just...
It's almost the de facto. It's like, oh, the video is on YouTube, or we're going to upload it to YouTube.
Right.
And it's with the ease of publishing tools. I mean, our phones and iPads, everything can just publish straight to YouTube. It's truly, I think, I mean, it's the new medium of like video sharing and how it's enabled different countries and like things like situations that have happened in Egypt and the Middle East, and word being able to get out and disseminate by YouTube and by smartphones. I mean, it's just a new era of human communication and access to understanding that we didn't have 7 years ago, I guess.
Not to mention a few 100,000 before then.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting, all the different types of content and how easy it is to leverage YouTube to find out a fact about just about anything.
Yes.
I mean, you want to learn something about After Effects. There's probably a few videos online. You want to learn about how to use Facebook for your brand, and there's probably some decent posts there.
Or what instruments cats can play.
Exactly.
Like keyboards,
of course.
First,
keyboards,
yes.
of course. Yeah. No, it's pretty mind-boggling. It's good stuff. Yeah. I'm glad YouTube exists. I like it.
Me too. Makes my job a lot easier.
All of our jobs. The next one, it was an article that was actually written for Forbes, and the title of it was "Move On, Entrepreneurs, Here Come the Intrapreneurs." And what I thought was interesting about the article is, having been more of an entrepreneur, being on the startup side, and now working for a larger company with a long history. A lot of the way we think is really not that incredibly different than what the entrepreneur does. We just have a strong business model to keep us, keep income coming, keep revenue coming out on a regular basis, and it gives us the opportunity to do more. So I think maybe part of it's because we're in an agency, so we have to be thinking about new things and looking at different ways in order to communicate more effectively with different target audiences and stuff. But I definitely think that there is a definite place for this intrapreneurial spirit within most organizations. I mean, if you're not looking to evolve and to change continually, chances are your business is just going to become obsolete.
Well, and I think that's a great point, and I don't think we're going to see entrepreneurs everywhere. I mean, there's certain business models and structures that lead themselves to attracting creative people or people who are willing to think of ideas beyond their job, their 9 to 5. And an agency is a place like that where, I mean, a lot of us it's like I worked about 4 or 5 hours this weekend on different things. I mean, it's like we're a community of people who the hours of the day don't confine like what we're doing in our creativity.
Yeah. But you look at large companies. I mean, think of a company like Monsanto, right? They have hundreds of millions probably in research dollars to leverage. Yeah. You just kind of wonder to what extent do they really push that level forward? I mean, obviously look at products, the types of things they specifically sell, but I just kind of wonder how much of a true entrepreneurial type spirit is in those organizations out of, let's just create the next product based on what we're already doing, as opposed to looking for a fundamental way to change the way they do business. And I think that's where the entrepreneur is really different than just, the standard sales and marketing department. Well, we talk to our customers and they want a seed that can do this, let's do that. As opposed to, well, maybe they don't actually need a seed.
Well, I think that's the case, is that you have a talent pool that ends up branching out of what they're currently doing and redefining the model of the business itself, or augmenting it in a way that you didn't currently have access to. And so, I mean, that goes back to the politics of, a large multi-million-dollar organization. It's probably not going to be able to react and change in a way that a small group can.
Absolutely.
Because you could have a very successful talent pocket within the company, but they would be, just shadowed by the machine of policy and everything.
Yeah.
It would take probably a lot for a larger company to truly change its model based on entrepreneurial spirit.
Sure. Well, at least the whole thing.
Yeah.
Right. I guess what I think I found maybe most intriguing about it for myself personally was just that, we do push for that, and I really believe in that blue ocean strategy, finding something and doing completely different the way other people are doing it. So I don't know, I think maybe there's been so much talk about entrepreneurship. We have conferences, tech conferences around the country, and we look at all these entrepreneurs that are making hundreds of millions, or now we have people worth billions, based on this entrepreneurial technology stuff. I think it's just nice to actually give some notoriety to those individuals who are also revolutionizing things and changing things. They're just not out there being touted as entrepreneurs starting these super hip technology companies in Silicon Valley or New York, but they're still doing some really cool stuff.
Change your current company, not start a new one, right?
Exactly. Where there may already be a revenue stream to start.
Yeah. And you have some benefits, maybe.
Yeah, that's helpful. Especially when you're married with children, benefits are really nice to have. The other article that was, I don't know, this one I think is it's an interesting
We're going to run out of time
theory.
if we talk about
this whole thing, but we can touch on it a little bit. There's a really cool article on Read Write Web about computer programming for all and it potentially becoming a new standard for literacy. So we think about, the article talks about like 300 years ago, most people couldn't actually read and write. So you would actually hire somebody to write something for you or to read something for you. And in many ways, that's the way our society and culture is now in regards to computer programming. People can't generally, read code, and if they need somebody to do it, or write it. So even something as simple as JavaScript or CSS or HTML, most people don't.
Simple.
It is simple. In the scheme of programming, those are extremely simple things. But, but people don't even know how to do that. So, ultimately, will that become something that more people will need to learn? Will we even push programming more as just a standard language? Like now kids learn in this country learn English and Spanish or French as they move on. Is computer programming going to take the place of or an addition to one of those basic languages?
In first grade, you learn addition, subtraction, and then if statements and for loops.
In the infinite loop.
Yes, and what happens? But I think it's impossible. I love to think about topics like this because we've been using computers mainstream for about 20 years now, and where we've gone from like a laptop to an iPad here, I mean, they are irreplaceable in how we work with the world and how we even just want to use things, but where that is going to go, if we're going to see like trends with the iPad where the usability and the content creation is like a seamless experience versus actual defining that experience. I mean, I think that's where where I can't see where it will actually end up, because for how most people want to use a computer, like having a way to organize your photos or an easy way to communicate with someone, that's solving their problem. Like most people wouldn't necessarily think abstractly enough that I have 5,000 folders in here, or 5,000 images in this folder, and I need to rename all of them. They're just going to click once, click once, rename. Whereas if you're thinking in a programming mindset, you could maybe write a little script that renames all of them, family, trip, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. And you would have to almost have that mindset, like, or be trained to think about it it's like, well, I don't need to just brute force this. Like, I can approach this in a way of when thinking code to solve this problem.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with you there, and I do think that there's different levels of programming. There's very simple scripting languages, and there's actually really true computer code. Actually communicating with the kernel. Obviously, the vast majority of people will never get to that point, but I think I do think it's interesting. I mean, to give people the opportunity to understand the basics of programming, to be able to implement some certain things without needing to feel like you're part of the elitist group of programmers, because people can learn a lot of this stuff. So I do think it's interesting.
And I think one place where programming could be leveraged far better is the average like office user, because most of the tools they use every day have like the ability to create macros and greatly simplify tasks. I mean, everyone that I talk to, like an aunt or uncle that is working in a like a desk job type thing. They're just manipulating spreadsheets and other things day in and day out. And I'm like, some of the things you center your day around are a challenge that I have to solve like in 15 minutes using code. And I think if we could get people thinking, it's like, I don't need to manually manipulate this. I isolate what is the problem, what is what I'm doing repetitively, and then how to code that. And I think that we would, businesses would have a lot more time to actually do meaningful things rather than just manipulate
even graphic
numbers.
artists. I mean, all the different little scripts you can run and create for Photoshop and things like that to handle those repetitive tasks. I need to crop 300 images to make them these certain dimensions. You can set the script up in Photoshop to automatically do that and save it on a specific file format without having to manually do each one. So I agree, there are some really basic elements of programming for tools that already exist. And then there's also the ability to program things completely different than what currently exists based on programming platforms, languages, PHP and Apache and IIS and all of those types of tools, not to mention databases and all that. So it's interesting though.
I mean, just above and beyond like any of the nitty gritty of what we're talking about, I think exposing people to programming languages will help you understand how to solve problems.
I agree.
And look at things in an actual analytical step-by-step process. And I think like people who become exposed to that, if it clicks, then you really you see problems and you see patterns in a different way. I mean, there's an endless amount of
there's nothing like it.
I was going to say there's an endless amount of geeky rambling that we could do on this.
Since we've both done programming, obviously due to more of a depth than I obviously do anymore, but it is really amazing the types of things you can learn and the different types of problem-solving techniques that you really do begin to grasp just by learning how to interact and how to store information and look at it in different ways. So I completely agree. So I hope you enjoyed that. That was kind of fun. Join us next week. Actually, we're going to be shooting some segments from New York when we're out there for a special little event. So we'll be shooting some stuff, and we'll put that up live next week. Thanks.
Thank you.